Good morning. And it's super good to see each of you here this morning. Matthew 5, verse 16, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. Matthew 5, verse 16. Let your light so shine. In the Greek, that is a literal command, and it's talking about continually letting your light shine. Continuous action. And when you look at this next thing about before men, well, why would Jesus say before men? Doesn't he know that all it is to be before God first, not before men? You know, Christ ridiculed the Pharisees, and he said, all that you do is seen by men. So why is Jesus here telling us that in spite of what he's going to tell the Pharisees in Matthew 23, to be seen of by men, to be before men? What does that really mean? What's Christ really telling us to do? Well, notice this. This is a continuous action that they may see what we're doing, how we're behaving, how our attitudes are, that they may see our actions. And the very phrase that they may see is a conditional statement. It means that when we're not showing our light, they may not see. They may not see Jesus in our lives. They may not see that you and I are indeed Christians. So I must show my light before men that they may see your good works. The good works there is talking about those things that are noble and godly. Things that are wholesome and holy. And by seeing what you're doing and how you are shining as a light before men, seeing your good works, they're going to thank God that you're in the room. They're going to thank God that there's a Christian present right now. They're going to thank God that you're alive. And they're going to glorify God, who is your Father in heaven. Can you imagine someone actually thanking that you're in the room because you're a Christian? You see here how Jesus is putting together light and good works. And these things come from the Father in heaven. Now notice this. When you look at these things, it shows us that these things are of heavenly origin. They're not earthly in nature. These things really cannot originate with us. Now, what is so good about light? What is so good about these good works? Well, you know, light dispels darkness. Light reveals. Light awakens. Light even warns at times, as in the lighthouses. It warns the ships at sea, don't come near this coastline. There are rocks and big mountains ahead of you and cliffs around. Watch out. And when you notice this, then you begin to realize that Christ is putting these things together. Good works and light, and they may glorify your Father who's in heaven. You know, James calls God the Father of lights. James 1 verse 17. He's saying, all this that we're going to talk about today, about our good works, cannot originate within us. They come from heaven above. They come from the master teacher, the heavenly teacher, the heavenly scholar. In Matthew 5, we're going to begin verse 1. Now we're going to see where we're going to go and what we're going to do with our lives. What kind of good works you and I are to put on display. Listen to verse 1. And seeing that great crowd of people, the multitudes, he went up onto a mountain, and when he was set, his disciples came to him and dipped in his mouth, and he taught them, saying. Now, that very phrase that when he was set, that is a Hebrew custom. It's a rabbi custom. And it means that when a rabbi is coming into the room, and when he is seated, now he's going to have a lot of authority. His words have a lot of weight to them. Therefore, you better listen, and listen carefully. Christ here is talking to that crowd of people and his own disciples with great authority. And verse 3, what should I begin to do with my life? What would be one of those first good works? Verse 3, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. God's favors upon the humble. This is an attitude, and each one of these are attitudes that will reflect in our lives. Proverbs 27 verse 19 reads this way in the NIV. As water reflects the face, so does one's life reflect the heart. My attitude will reflect my heart. My actions will reflect my attitude, so therefore my life will be influenced. The first work I am to do is to be humble. And that is to be in full submission to God. And it's a voluntary thing. Peter said this way, humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time. 1 Peter 5 verse 5. We are to even associate with the humble. Romans 12 verse 16. We are to, as Zephaniah said, we are to be the meek and the humble that will call on the name of the Lord and trust in his name. Zephaniah 3 verse 12. You and I are to be people who show the world humility. Who show the world the good work and the noble work of submitting to God. Being humble in how we go through life. And there begins to differentiate the difference between us and the Pharisees. Our life is one that is humble and honest. Their life is one of hypocrisy and hatred. We have holiness on our side because we are reflecting God when you and I are humble. Verse 4 now, look at this. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed is the one who is, watch this word now very carefully, sensitive for his soul. The one who has care for his soul and for his neighbor's soul. The one who shows the world that I really do value my soul. The enemy to this is apathy. I don't care. That's apathy. But it's showing that I do care. You know, inside of our modern culture, we see a lot of people that begin to kind of barricade themselves within material things and within certain prisons of fear and self-doubt, all those kind of things. And they begin to just go into all the wrong areas. And we begin to almost exchange the soul for a fear that we have, or we begin to exchange the soul for money that we may want, or that great possession. But look at this, and that way of thinking there. Listen to these words of Christ. For what shall a man profit if he shall gain the whole world with his own soul? Or what shall that man give in exchange for his soul? Matthew 16:26. You and I should not barricade ourselves away from the world. We should not barricade ourselves away from caring for souls and for my own soul. We should not barricade ourselves away from these things. Very, very important. The man who is, again, careful and has a great degree of being sensitive to a soul. This is the one that will be comforted. Look at verse 5 now. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are the ones that have control in their lives. The ones that show control in their actions and in their words and in the behavior. They show control in all areas of their life. They show control when things get rough. They are in control. During a crisis, they're tough as nails. During times of peace, times when wisdom is being sought, they go find someone who is meek. Blessed are the meek. God has favored the meek. And so I show the world my good work of being meek. In verse number 6 now, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. You are what you eat. Now, are you starving your faith and feeding your fear? Or are you feeding your faith and starving your fear? When it comes to obstacles and our own giants in life that we have to conquer and feeding our faith, you think back to David and Goliath. Now, in 1 Samuel 17, Goliath is presenting himself for 40 days as a champion of the Philistines. He is saying, present your champion, and we will have a fight. And whoever wins will win the whole battle. And for 40 days, in verse 11, 1 Samuel 17, it says that the Israelites were greatly dismayed and they were afraid. They saw the sheer size of Goliath. They saw how big his sword and was, and how much army he had on, and the size of his helmet, and his general body, he's a giant. They became fearful. David comes up and he says, I've killed bears and lions and these kind of things. I didn't take care of Goliath. And then we said he went to the brook and he found those 5 smooth stones. He took one was thrown into the sling, and he went round and round. And then it went round and round and round and round, and he launched that stone, and that giant came tumbling down. Question, why would David have 5 stones if he only needed 1 to defeat Goliath? 2 Samuel teaches us that Goliath had 4 brothers. Each would have been a giant, and were giants. You can read that. He had 5 stones for 5 giants. That's faith there. He was feeding his faith and starving his fear. He said, with God on my side, with me trusting in God and putting my faith in God, God will look out for me. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. 2 Timothy 1, verse 7. You are what you eat. And so, why not begin to eat upon the Word of God and upon the promises of God, and to really feast on the prayers of God and to God? You are what you eat. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. That person that shows that they are all about faith and right doing, that is the one who will be satisfied. That is a good work that this world cannot comprehend, is righteousness. But yet we're doing this out of our faith in God. Look at this now, verse number 7. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. I'm to give mercy. I'm to give compassion. A lawyer came to Christ with a question. He said, who is my neighbor? And then Christ, in Luke 10, gave him that parable of the Good Samaritan. He said, in the parable there was a priest, and then there was a Levite, and they passed by on the other side of a man that was up for half dead and robbed. But then this Samaritan came down the road and from Jerusalem going toward Jericho, and he came down the road and he had compassion. He took care of him and took him to the inn and fixed his wounds up and paid for him, stayed there for a few days. And Christ said, now, who is your neighbor? The lawyer said, the one that showed him mercy. Christ said, go and do thou likewise. And Luke 6:36, therefore, as your Father is merciful, so also be merciful. And so whenever we show compassion, whenever we are full of mercy, we're doing so because that's what God does to us. Mercy is not getting what you and I deserve. Not getting a certain punishment, but you and I rightfully deserve. Christ here is saying, give mercy. Give mercy. When that person is ridiculing you and attacking you, give mercy. And you will be amazed that when you're giving off that good work then, people would begin to thank God if you're in the room. And they'll begin to glorify your Father who is in heaven. What else? Verse number 8, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Innocence is a word that, for whatever reason, is not seen in a good light today inside of our modern world. Innocence is seen as kind of this immaturity. In reference to marriage, and someone may ask a question about marriage, and someone will say, well, you're just being innocent-minded. Or someone says that you already joked somewhere, and that one person may say, I don't know what that means. And they say, you're too innocent to understand. But hold on now. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Innocence is a good thing. Defiling the mind is a bad thing. Remember, your attitude reflects your actions. Whatever you put in is going to come out. That's Titus 1:15. Whenever you defile the mind, your conscience is now defiled. Your actions are no longer going to be a pure motive unless you change. Unless you become pure in heart. Innocent again, which you can. It's a lot of work, but you can do it. Your good work here is innocence. The one that truly understands and follows that, as we call that, divine checklist of Philippians 4 verse 8. All those things that are just and godly and holy and of good report. All those things there. Honest. Watch this. He says, if there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think. Or literally meditate on these things. Philippians 4 verse 8. Purity of heart is to be encouraged in the life of every person. By doing that, I'm showing the world that I do not go down to that dirty joke that you just told. I'll go down to that dirty movie that you just went and saw. I'll go down to that kind of stuff. Purity of heart, innocence. That is seen as a good thing in God's eyes. Look at this now. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. God's not the God of confusion, but the God of peace. Jesus is called the Prince of Peace. Isaiah 9 verse 6. Whenever you and I make peace with others, that is the work of God. That's the idea of reconciling together. Again, rejoining two parties that were at one time in opposition. Now I'm reharmonizing, I'm making peace, this person should be called the son or daughter of God. What a wonderful picture. That's a good work. That's a way that people will say, you know, when they're around, I'm always at peace. But because of what I am to do with that peace, I am to firstly have my attitude and my heart right with God. And I am to have, as Paul said to the Philippi church, in Philippians 4 verse 6, I'm to have the peace that passeth all understanding within my own life. And I get that through Jesus Christ. Romans 5 verse 1. Notice this now. Verse number 10. 10 through 12 is a whole other section here together. So I am to be a peacemaker. Also, blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when they revile and persecute you, and say all kinds of evil against you for my sake. And they're doing this falsely. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, and for great is your reward in heaven, for so they persecute the prophets who are before you. The good work here that we are to do, show our light before others around, is to be an endurer. Count all joy, my brethren, when you fall into various trials, knowing that they work patience or endurance. And let endurance have her perfect work. James 1 verse 4. Endure hardship as a good soldier of Christ Jesus. 2 Timothy 2. Endurance. Jesus showed us the path of endurance. When he was being falsely accused, he remained silent. He endured to the end. In 1 Peter 21:22, it says that when he was reviled, he had to revile again. When he was insulted, he did not return the insult, but yet he suffered. And let that be our example, following his steps. In our modern culture, we have this mentality that whenever I'm taking heat, I'm being persecuted. That's what I feel. I'm being ridiculed. I'm being thrown under the bus. I'm just having a horrible time with this person or this group of people. That the goal then becomes, I'm going to make you cry. I'm going to say that insult that you just can't handle, and the goal is to make you cry. Go back home to mama. What a very Christ behavior that is. Hold on. Christ said that when he was insulted, he did not insult back to them. He did not retaliate. The goal in life is not to retaliate and to make them cry, showing that I won the argument. No, hold on. The endurer, the one who takes those things, the one who understands why they're happening, the one who endures hardship as a good soldier of Christ. That's the blessed person. That's the one that everyone will be glad that you're in the room now, because when things go bad, you can stay in there and still do good. And God says you're blessed. You have my favor. And because of these things, what else do we see about the believer? About this living believer, this one who's showing his life and her life in a great way. The living believer is thriving now in this decaying world. Now watch this now, verse number 13 picking up. Because of all these things that we are to do, to be our good works, You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its flavor, how shall it be seasoned? It is then good for nothing, but be thrown out and trampled underfoot of men. The believer, the one who is putting these works into his own life, is one that is going to preserve the world. God even says, I am glad that you're in the room. Men say, I'm glad that you're in the room. You know what? I think being a Christian is a good thing. Maybe like one and looking like one, thinking like one. It's a good thing to be a Christian. You are the salt of the earth. You are the preservation agent. You're the one that, as long as you're keeping on, letting your light shine, you're going to continue on blessing the earth, blessing the world. Those all around, those in your family and those in the workplace, you're going to bless them because you're letting your light shine. You're doing it for God's glory. You're doing it because you're a Christian. But when you lose it, it is good for nothing. So don't lose it now. Verse 14, pick up here. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hid. Nor do they light a lamp put under a basket but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. That now goes into from individual now to collective. When everyone is together, showing their light, showing their positivity, showing their good works, showing that they really are Christ followers and they're Christian. Collectively, that is such an unimaginable great force that it is as a sea on a hill that cannot be hid. Then you imagine going to Jackson or Atlanta or Birmingham or wherever you may go, or Mobile, and you see the skyline over the trees or over the hill, and you see the skyline. You can't hide the big city. You just can't do it. The Christian and the church together, when we're all acting and behaving like Christians, it cannot be hid. And that's a good thing. Those people far away are going to see you, and they're going to notice that you're a Christian. They're going to hear about you. They're going to know what you did. They're going to know how you behaved, how you treated that person. You made them feel. They're going to know all these great things about you. But you're doing it not to be talked about. You're doing it to just do good. You're doing it because you're a Christian. You're showing your faith by your works, you see. You're doing it because you want to give God the glory for your life. And because of how you live in your life, again, they will thank God that you're in the room. They will glorify your Father who is in heaven. The collective group is so powerful. Everyone must do it together. Everyone must be in the same boat together. And that's an unimaginably powerful good source. And good thing to have inside every community. And by that, guess what? The community's going to thank God that you're in the community. What a blessing. And that's why Christ said, let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works. Matthew 5:3-13. And that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. Am I humble? Am I one that's pure in heart? Merciful? One that cares for my soul and for others? One that has compassion? One that is a peacemaker? Am I one that hunger and thirst for righteousness? Am I one that endures? All are great works. And Paul told Titus to be zealous for good works. Titus 2 verse 14. To maintain good works. Titus 3 verse 8. I am to therefore do good unto all men. Am I being used by the world? Or am I being useful to the Lord? What kind of good works am I doing? What kind of good am I doing to somebody else today? How am I displaying my life to the world around? Today, if you have to respond by coming forward and desiring to be baptized, having your sins washed away, that's a true blessing in your life. You're going to come and come down the blood of Christ and gospel obedience of being baptized. Romans 6, 1-4. Or if you need to repent and come back home, because you want to again get your life right in the eyes of God, in the eyes of this church, and this community, you're going to be blessing this church again, and this community again. Well, if you need to be encouraged, we love you as well. If that may be, just come now,